Good evening and welcome to Speaker Club Saturday night number 105. I missed you all for the last 2 weeks when I was not present, but I'm happy for the fact that we all can survive without anyone's presence. Equally me. I think that's what the beauty of this platform is and how each one of us have become a cohesive unit, leveraging on each other's talents and yet making sure that we have a Saturday night, because that doesn't go away whether I am or anyone is there or not. So happy to see you all in the pink of health and happy to see most of you all today, because it's an important session wherein there's going to be two segments of it. One is a fun element that we're going to have towards the end of the session, but the more important part of this session is about difficult conversations. I'm not going about the introduction for the club because I see each one of you all have been a part of it already and don't need any introduction to what we do here on a Saturday night. So let's get right into the session of what is it that we're going to talk about today. How many of you all have had instances where you've had this feeling within you that you have to have this conversation and yet are all perplexed in your mind, have thoughts in your mind whether I should be having it or not, and have statements like these popping into your head every time this conversation comes? I don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. Now is not the time. It's not that big a deal. What's the point of having this conversation? There's never going to be a good outcome. Maybe the problem will fix itself as time passes by. A difficult conversation is a planned discussion about an uncomfortable topic or a negative experience where the goal is to share a different perspective, build the mutual understanding, and most importantly, to develop a respect. It need not be about finding an outcome, whether a win or a loss, or to persuade someone. The focus is on having the conversation in itself. That is a place where most of us as human beings, we want to avoid conflicts. We want to avoid a conversation which we are not sure what will happen as a result of which. And yet, if there is something which is lingering in your mind, that this is something which is bothering me, hurting me, and I have to have this conversation to settle it down within myself and for the better of the conversation to end at peace. So please note, it is not a case where you're looking at the outcome of the conversation. The very idea of a difficult conversation is to have it in the first place. And the worst outcome of a difficult conversation is not having it at all. We often think avoiding is a solution, is a possibly one of the good thing to happen when it comes to difficult conversation. But the reality is that's the worst possible thing, because whatever happens as a result of that conversation, you will always be either at least at where you are or better off from where you were. And that largely hinges on how you have that conversation. We could be talking about payback, workplace situations, giving a feedback about performance, telling a friend that you're hurt, promotions, sex, conversations in a relationship, whether it's a family or a mutual romantic relationship. It could be about many things. What it is about is not the point of conversation today. The point of conversation today is about having that conversation where there is a feeling where you need to talk to someone, to that person, and resolve a challenge. How many of you all have had in the past difficult conversations? You can just unmute and speak. How many of you all have had a difficult conversation in the past or are right now revolving in your mind of how do I go about this conversation? I'm waiting. And I'm sure with the title of the session, not just for the regulars, if you have joined the session, there is something that you have in your mind, and for that very reason you have joined today. For me to make this session impactful, I will need a conversation. It can't be a monologue. It can't be just sharing gyan or whatever hypothetical problems that I have in my mind, which I'll be sharing. It can't happen that way. I want a situation where you have had a conversation in the past, or there's something lingering in your mind right now. And I want responses from all 11 of you all before I move ahead with today's conversation. Unmute and speak. I'm waiting. Akansha, you had unmuted and you had gone back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did have difficult conversations and they went well. And like, the mutual understanding and respect how the conversation was done. Like, it wasn't like I'll yell at you, you yell back at me. No, it was respect and sharing of what the other went through. Like, it's not just.
Let's talk specific. If you can have or tell what the conversation was. You not name the person. I'm just talking about what the conversation was about.
I don't remember.
Resolved. Lakshmi, Ellen.
Yeah, actually what will happen, my boss is there, right? My boss, mid person, actually my CEO is there, middle I'm reporting to VP. What will happen, lot of things, lot of stuff I will do, lot of office, lot of things only. What will happen, I do everything, they will change the name, they will use to share that one. Okay, whatever we are doing like that. But some of the time what will happen, actually they will, nowadays it's happening to me, they will, whatever I explain to them, they put in mail, actually I instructed, they tell I'm instructed him, they will take input from me. Again, even I'm also there in that mail or something like that. That time I'll feel actually they are new. Past 6 years I'm taking care of. New, actually how they need to manage, they don't know. Even that experienced person or something like that. That time I will get some, I used to think I need to speak to my CEO, or else let it be there, no issues. Okay, we'll, how we can say, actually, okay, there is their knowledge or their working style or something like that. So even I'm doing end to end for them. So they will use to sue that one. That time I will see, okay, I need to speak to him or what to do or something like that. So that is present my mind actually going on past 15 days. So that's mine actually.
Interesting. Hopefully by the end of this session, you should be able to, I'm not saying solve the problem, but find a way in which you can go ahead and have this conversation. Thank you. Thank you, Ellen, for that. Akanksha, go ahead.
Sir, just a simple question. What to expect out of a difficult conversation?
It will be difficult.
Like, no, I mean, as a result, should the conflict or whatever be solved? Or should perspectives be shared? Which part of it should be focused on the most?
We'll come on that. We'll come on that as we move ahead in the session. We will be talking about what is it that you can possibly be expecting as an outcome of a conversation like this. But for sure, it's not the agreement and a resolution of the problem. That is not the only possible thing a difficult conversation will do. I'll come back on detail with that. Subbu. You're not audible, Subbu. You were very low. I mean to say, I think you need to take the speaker ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Rahul, actually, initially we completed one project with the 6 months. Okay, the other vendors are quoted with 2.5 years. Okay, unfortunately, our management got quoted with 6 months. So we did a lot of stretched efforts and we fixed that project and we delivered everything. Okay, outcome of the project is many people got benefited, but none of our team members not benefited in any other way. Okay, and forget about other way. We bother for some few days later. We take that new opportunity again to the same company. I mean to say some other assignment and assignment by assignment. Keep on we delivering many things, but other people are, I mean, they identify the efforts in the right direction, but my team sometimes they are not identifying the right direction. Sometimes a bit emotional to us, and sometimes we directly. Recently, I spoke to the same thing to my management as well. Then they come up with all the things and they kind of identifying the things and appreciating into the VP level and other things.
Interesting. Thank you, Subbu. I think I will be over the course of the session today, we will be discussing specifics, and hopefully if you don't have a challenge with discussing the specifics, feel free to share in. And if you feel there is a certain element of privacy that is required for that conversation, you can feel free to not discuss that. Okay, I leave that to you. Who's there? Priya, are you there? Who's by the name Shanti? Finally, we have a little Shanti back in the difficult conversation. Hi, Shanti.
Rahul, this is Shanti.
Speechcraft?
Yeah, I attended a couple of sessions and.
Okay, wonderful. Good to see you back today. I'm not sure what got you excited to come for today's session. Can you share any difficult conversation that you have had in the past, you have experienced in the past, or you're undergoing something currently?
Yeah, there'll be many like this, but one aspect what I remember is generally when some of the friends ask for some financial help, it is good when but not everyone pays it back in time. It's not in time, but at least afterwards, when it is possible, they should pay it back. But some people, they do not pay it, and they'll just, I don't know if they forget it or purposefully they do not want to bring it. But at the time of while we try to remind them that they should give back some money, that is a really, really difficult thing. And many times I left it also, means without feeling the difficulty of bringing the topic. It might be something like as less as 5,000, 10,000, or whatever it is. When someone is taking something, they should give it back, and people do not give it back. While asking, they'll ask. So that I feel that is a very difficult thing to get it back or bring the topic also.
Thank you, Shanti, for bringing that up. Actually, I'll share my GPay number. Can you please, when you said 5,000, 10,000 is lesser, I think I would like to have it still. And I'll wait to see how difficult it is for you to ask or not. Thank you, Shanti, for sharing that. I think that's a wonderful share. I like the genuineness with which you brought about that point. Sri Krishna, Dinesha, anyone would like to share before we move ahead and get going with this process? Dinesha. Sri Krishna, Shubhadra ma'am. I've always had this difficult conversation of asking you to come on video, but I've never been able to succeed in that. At least I get to hear your voice. Okay, what we'll do is, Rabia, are you there?
Yes, good evening.
Any instance, Shubhadra ma'am, still just a response with the emoji. Rabia, any instance where you have experienced a difficult conversation with anyone you have experienced, could be a good outcome, bad outcome, whatever it is, but or you're currently experiencing something. Would you like to share something? Rabia?
Yeah, just a minute. Let me think over.
That means you're not having any.
No. It happens many a times. It's not like that.
Now I'm worried you're flooded with so many.
Yeah, I'm.
Go ahead.
I just can say about it is actually not personally related to me, but I have come across a situation where I was thinking that the ice to be broken by someone, and I thought that to be the one to take the initiative of it. Actually, it is a matter related with two people around me in my staff. Okay. And then my colleagues who just had a kind of differences of opinion on some particular topic, and then they stopped talking. So the thing is that when we are at work, in fact, we just see each other every day. More than the family, we have to meet and talk to each other every day on the daily basis, that too from morning till evening. So there is no kind of an excuse or to say that, yes, you can avoid the person for some time or for some longer period of time. Every day when we have to meet, it has to be a very congenial atmosphere we need to have to work and concentrate on. So likewise, it so happened that I felt that these two people are right now at the different poles. One is in the north, other one is in the south, like. So in a matter of so, the situation turns so difficult for us to communicate with both of them when we have to talk to them on the neutral grounds as such. Like when we have to have some information to take from the one person and the other information to be taken from the other person. And sometimes we have to sit together and work out on one particular topic. So it becomes so difficult that how to manage it. One says the something, the other one or definitely says the opposite of it, and we would be in a fix. We are in a fix, like how are we going to whom are we going to favor with? If say someone about the other one, the other person gets upset, and we take the favor of the one, the other one will get upset. So this is the
Interesting.
situation we are going ahead with. And I don't know, I just thought that this session may give me at least some kind of guidance or guidelines or tips to how to resolve this particular situation or problem, difficult situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabi. I think it's a very valid point, and you can change the context for anywhere. Frankly, the thing that you said about two teachers or two colleagues, it can be in a corporate house where two teams are working on the opposite sides, and we have always had challenges. Or families, we have had two siblings. As a parent, two siblings will always be there like that. You can apply that same instance to other backdrops, other situations also. So let's get going with this process through which we can actually initiate a difficult conversation, because that's one of the most important things. Uma ma'am, go ahead, ma'am. Sorry, I could not ask you.
Yeah. Good evening, Rahul. So sometimes when we give a feedback to somebody, when we tell it bluntly, sometimes there is a possibility of the other person feeling hurt. And later on, to take on that conversation and maintain that relationship as before becomes a little difficult. So whenever we give feedback, if we give it in a suggesting way, it will always be better. So that is a recent experience which I had. And then when that feedback was given to me, I felt a little bad. But then I thought it is a constructive feedback and I took it positively. Then later I started feeling better. So the person who gives the feedback should always give it in a suggestive way. That is my suggestion.
Interesting.
That's what made the conversation difficult later with both of us.
Got it. Interesting, ma'am. I think we will be using, this is one of the inputs that we are talking of, that we are going to talk about as we progress in the session. With regard to the pointer where the conversations happen, let's take up the entire process through which we can have a difficult conversation into two parts. One is what happens before we actually get into the conversation, and one is what happens while we are having the conversation, because these are two different elements which can be played in a different way. While the real live action which happens has to be a lot more sensitive, and you have to be in the real time playing the response game accordingly, while the before part of having a difficult conversation, in whatever context that you referred to, is much more prepared and planned and thought out before you actually get into that conversation. So let's talk of what happens, what needs to happen before you actually get into that conversation. The reason why it is difficult is because from your perspective, from your stance, there is a challenge, there is a situation, there is an uncomfortable environment or thought which is there around you. Had it been just simply, it doesn't matter, it would not have been a difficult conversation. Rabia could have just told you, please take care of each other. I don't need to deal with this. Or Shanti could have just said, I need my money. I gave it to you, give it back to me. Or Subbu could have told that, I think my team deserves much more credit than what you're giving right now. Or Ellen, the credit taken part of it. You could have just let it be, which is one of the common things where we are stuck. Now here, we have not gone forward into the conversation because you also have another side of the picture, which has to be thought out and constructed in a way where you do not want to end the conversation in a rift. You still want normalcy. You still want to put across your burden on the table of what you are experiencing, what you're feeling, what pain you are experiencing. You want to put it through. May not be get a solution for it, or what has happened in the past, change the past. But with the fact that you want to put it off your shoulders. That is where you have to begin with understanding and asking a few questions to yourself. whenever you're talking of having a difficult conversation, or you're finding it challenging to have a difficult conversation, ask these questions to yourself. What is the purpose of having that conversation? Do you want to reprimand that you are creating a negative environment in the team? Or do you want a better future? Do you want to say something which, in a way in which that person doesn't stop asking you the money in itself? Or you want the money back, that's it. You need to ask what is the purpose with which you're getting into that conversation, because that becomes the anchor, that becomes your go-to point anytime the discussion or the conversation is going haywire and heated up with emotions in different situations, different comments, different arguments which can come up in the conversation. You want to use this as the anchor to come back to. So the first point in asking that, you should be asking yourself. Again, we are not initiating the other side of the picture. We are talking of your side of the picture, where you need to understand and ask yourself, what is it that I want as a goal of this conversation? Having said the goal, there will always be a worst case situation. There will be a positive case outcome. You need to assess, having this conversation, what can possibly go wrong than what it is right now. Right now, it's all in your head. It's all in your uncomfortable zone. By spilling the beans of this conversation and having it out, what can possibly go wrong worse than what you're experiencing right now? On the contrary, what if things don't turn out that bad? I was just overthinking about it. What is the ideal outcome that you're looking for? In Rabia's case, could be tomorrow they sit on the same table. They might not become the best chuddy buddy friends, but we can sit on a single table and discuss things without having to have the pain of thinking that this person will counter for the sake of it. We are not looking at making the best of friends for both these individuals. We are asking for an amicable environment where we can discuss and not bother about what this person is thinking or what that person is thinking. So what is the ideal outcome that you're looking for? In friendship's case, in two friends, suppose it's not a case of Rabia or the two colleagues, it's a family. The ideal outcome would be both of the brothers or sisters or cousins or whosoever it is that you're trying to make amends, get to understand each other and start working on building a relationship. So the purpose and the outcome that you're expecting becomes the foundation for you to start the conversation. Once you're clear with that, without a clarity of that, there will be instances during the conversation where the rockets will fly here and there and you'll not be sure what you are trying to accomplish. Because in the heat of that moment, in that energy, the emotional energy charge which will happen during that conversation, it is very, very easy for us to get lost, not knowing what are we trying to accomplish. So the first and foremost thing with whatever you're trying to accomplish, Ellen, Subbu, Uma ma'am, Rabia, whatever you have shared and others who have not shared, if you're thinking of any past instance where you've had a conversation, just remember, if it has gone south, if it has gone bad, was it because you didn't have an end in mind? You didn't have that purpose in mind. You didn't stick to that purpose. Ask yourself that question. And for the question, for the things which are pondering in your mind right now, which is still to happen, write down that one line of what is the purpose for which you want to accomplish and have this conversation in the first place. Once that is clear, also look at how have you contributed to the situation. As an example, in Rabia's case, she could have favored one of the person and that could have hit emotionally the other person. Or in the case of the finance case, did you know that this person has a habit of not repaying and yet give the money? Or in Subbu's case or Ellen's case, with regard to the work that you're doing, did you not, was it just a hearsay? Was it just on conversation? Did you miss out on documenting the process through which you have gone through, because of which the credit hasn't come to you or the team hasn't been recognized? Where is the fallacy from your end? What have you done, or what is your contribution because of which you are in this position? Ask yourself that, because not all difficult conversations are a result of some external force alone. We are also at fault, and it's okay. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We have to, as a third person, think of where can we be wrong in this conversation, because that is sure to come back to you. That is sure to come back to you, because in the conversation, while you're having that conversation, the mistake that you made is surely, if the other person is not mature enough to discuss or have the conversation, is surely going to be used against you. So remember that. What have you contributed to the problem that you are in right now? Have a clarity of that. Everything is clear until here? Have the anchor of why you're getting into it. Be clear with what is the worst case scenario and what is it that you're possibly expecting as an outcome from this conversation. And third part is, where is the fallacy from your end? What is the mistake? What is the drawback? What have you contributed to this problem being existing in the first place? Clear? Everyone? Please don't make it difficult for me while I'm conversing with you. Okay, so that brings to the next level of this conversation. When we're talking about the setup from our end being clear, the purpose and all these things being clear, now it is important to look at the story from the other person's perspective. What could possibly be the other person thinking when you are having this conversation? It's all in your mind until now. We are all talking before the conversation. We are all talking before the conversation. What is it that possibly the other person could be? Let's give a benefit of doubt. Let's give a benefit of doubt. That person is habitually forgetful, and so he didn't give you the money or repay you. That person comes from a company where normally the sign off with regard to the project happens by the leader, and there's no mention of the subordinates who have worked for him. Or in Rabia's case, possibly it's a case where this person has a situation at the backdrop. That person is uncomfortable right now because last time when he was friendly or supportive of others, they used him. They took advantage of his niceness or goodness and stepped over and progressed in their career while this person was left out. All I'm asking you is, look at the other possibility from what you're thinking right now because of the situation. Note down 3 instances of possible reasons in a good way of why the problem is in there. And it could be it's just a perspective problem, not a real one. Because most often in these difficult conversations, we get into the conversation that we are the saint and the other person is the devil, which may not be the same. It can just be a case where we have not given it a chance. We have not heard the perspective. We have not listened to what the other person is saying. Can that be a case? Or you're just using your past experiences, may not be with the same person. May not be the same person. You're using your past experiences to tell that this boss is also like this. Takes away the credit for all my work. Based on not this boss, but the other bosses you have had in the past. So I want you to consider and pen down 3 things, 3 reasons why the other person could have acted in the way they have. So we have got our story clear. Now we are trying to think about what can possibly the reason why the other person is behaving in a certain way. Possibly the real reason will be coming out during the conversation, but for you to get into the conversation in a sane mind and not as a victim or that sane state, I'm wanting you to think of what can possibly be the reasons why the other person behaved in a certain way. Has the other person done something like this in the past, or is it something which is out of character? Is it a one-off instance? Can we give the other person a chance that he could be having a bad day? He could be right now really in a bad state of finance. So when he said 1 month, he might actually wanting it to have for 2 months, but he did not have the courage, because if he said 2 months, maybe you will not give that money at all. Getting it? I'm asking you to think of whether whether this problem or whatever's happened, or whether the way the other person is behaving is a one-off instance, or is it a habitual thing, which will also give you whether you have to fight it out as a pattern or just nudge the other person that maybe you have forgotten, or if you want more time, I can wait for another 1 month. The approach will change whether it's a one-off behavior or whether it's a habitual pattern. So consider that also. This is the tough part. The last part, where have I done something? Have I done something in this instance or somewhere in the past that has led this person to behave in a way? It's very easy for us to find a reason, concrete, clear-cut reason for us to behave in a certain way, but it is very hard for us to reason out for someone else based on our mistake. Based on our mistake, because it's very hard to believe that I made a mistake. Can you think of a reason why this person could have behaved in a way where I did something? Last time when I asked money, remember what you did? That time it was a case of hospital and you didn't help me. I'm just guessing, I'm just saying. Or in case of Rabia, maybe the instance is that the environment is challenging. The problem between both of us has been created because you have taken sides. Have you taken sides? As a result of which the rift has been created. Between siblings, they often say, when we have one son, we are a parent. But when you have two, not son or daughter, when you have two, you become a referee. And often, you may not want to accept it, but you often take the sides of the child that you love more. Not that you don't love the other. It could be the first child, or it could be the daughter, or anyone. The point is, unconsciously, you taking sides creates a rift between the both of them. So are you acknowledging that because of your behavior, this entire problem is there in the first place? Everything is in sync with what I'm sharing? First, getting our picture clear, then putting ourselves in the other side of the story to understand what can possibly be the challenge. Now, that said, a few things which I wanted to mention here. Do not assume. We often assume that the other person can see from our viewpoint. Here, when we're talking of a difficult conversation, that person might be chill. He's not at all bothered. He's enjoying. He's gone for a movie. Well, here we are all in this mind that this could have happened. This could have happened. This happened. He behaved like this. That is what is happening. I don't know. It's all in my mind. It's all in my mind. Don't assume that the other person knows that you are in this mess. Before having the conversation, you cannot assume that that person knows everything of what you're going through. Do not assume that your boss knows that you're feeling bad that your team wasn't giving credit, because you haven't had told him at all. You haven't had a chance to express that to him. You haven't thought that this could be a problem at all. They don't know that you're thinking like this. So you're assuming. It could be. There are political games happening. There are politics everywhere. I don't deny. I'm not saying it's not possible. All I'm saying is, do not assume that it's the same case. Yes, Akanksha.
Another question. How to initiate this difficult conversation?
I'm coming back to the next point. Akanksha, like I mentioned, I'm at 100 session now. You are at 104. There's a reason. Let me come. Don't run ahead of time. I'm coming to that point of how we can initiate the conversations. There's always a few prepared lines. It's not like that heated, suddenly you enter into your boss's room and start firing it, or you take the two colleagues into the washroom and start bashing them, or whatever instance, or you just pick up the call and ask that person, what happened? Why didn't you give my money? I'm really bothered. I'm really messed up with the way you're behaving, and all that thing happening without even beginning in the right way. Because a difficult conversation, well begun, is half solved. Now that you have a clarity of what you are thinking and what do you want out of this conversation, and you have given the possible outcomes and the thought from the other side of the picture also possible. We don't have all the answers yet. Until we have the conversation, we will never have the answers. So possibly you have also thought of what could be the other side of the picture. Now, a few lines, a few ways in which you can get the conversation started is something like this. With a friend with the money, you can just WhatsApp them or just call and say that I have something to discuss with you. Whenever you have time, just let me know. There's a high likelihood that that person could respond, is it about that money? And the answer could come out right there and the conversation is over. If the case was he forgot about it. Else, sure, let's discuss. The response could also come out that, yeah, I have something to share with you also. The other side of, I would like to talk about how my team has dealt a project in 6 months, while others were talking of 2.5 months, 2.5 years. But I would like to understand your point of view before I share what I am experiencing right now. Or, I need your help with something. Can we talk about it soon? So rather than directly pointing out to the problem, we are just telling or putting them on the pedestal and asking them for their viewpoint, so that our assumption which is there doesn't come to the fore and it doesn't hurt the other person before even they have spoken something. So instead of saying, Subbu, instead of saying, my team is very hurt that they didn't get the credit for the work that they did. The other side of the beginning can be, I had something to discuss about my team who has been working really hard and they have done some exceptional work. I would like to discuss it whenever you have time. See the difference? Putting someone on the back foot in a difficult conversation can put your agenda in jeopardy. It can put you in the back foot because right away, that person will not work on defensive strategy. They'll work on offensive. They'll start attacking you. You really feel they need that? In the case, if you would have said, they didn't get the credit. Instead, I would like to discuss is an approach in which you are giving the other person a rightful opportunity to explain themselves. So you are using a strategy called as inquiry rather than statements. So Rabia's case as an example, you can ask inquiry. Can we all sit down and talk about something which has been a challenge with the entire department? I think we are all grown up. We need to discuss and see what we can do. Rather than, I really don't like the way we are this thing is happening right now. Every time I say something, you say the opposite. You say something, she says the opposite. You're putting another instance where they are on the opposites. The way you approach the beginning of the conversation, the way you put it across, rather than putting the problem at the first hand on the face of it or on the receiver's face, you're talking, I want to discuss or I want to have a conversation. I didn't say the session's name was difficult problems. The session's name is difficult conversations. So my focus is first on the conversation initiation, and then surely we will be discussing about the difficult part of it. But like I mentioned, well begun is half solved. You're getting the other person to sit on the table and talk. And that is where you're solving the problem rather than creating a problem, another problem other than the one that you already have. So I hope this helps. You can use strategies like this where you can begin the conversation with an approach where you're requesting to have a conversation, because that in itself tells the maturity that you have to the other person that you want to talk about something. You're not here to make allegations or make comments or statements or tell that you made this mistake. You are here to have a conversation. Even the most foolish and the extreme person who plays games, when they see this approach coming up, they'll see that you are not someone who can be emotionally muddled. You cannot be taken a ride based on your emotional imbalance, based on whatever he says, because that's where he'll use your mistake. That's where he'll use your mistake. Remember the first point? He'll use your mistake where you have contributed in this problem and move away from the conversation. It'll all be emotionally heated up right away and the conversation won't happen at all. Clear everyone here? Please don't make it difficult.
Yeah, one more.
Go ahead, Rabia.
Yeah, one more situation I can say. I cannot name it right now, but
No
the thing
issues.
is,
You'll
yeah.
understand whether it's you.
Yeah, I'm the target. So the thing is that actually many a times it so happen when I just take an initiative to talk about the things and say something or the other, still the person who is opposite to me, the next one, like if I talk for 100 sentences, I'll get an answer only for one word substitute, like. And then after, it was so, like, I can say, I cannot even say irritating. It's so uncomfortable, I feel, in such a situation. Many a times I even openly on the neutral grounds made the person to sit and just talked and said that, see, when I talk, please for God's sake respond me properly so that I can continue my conversation. Otherwise, you be yourself, I be myself. I don't mind, because if you take a step ahead, I can take 10 steps ahead. If you just want to recede, I can recede to the other part of the ocean.
Hold
So
on,
please,
hold on. When you say this, I won't take that step ahead. Because when you're telling the other person that if I'm taking, you take one step, I'll take 10, you're trying to be the hero. And if I take one step back, I won't take one either. You're putting it right on the other person's face.
But it is a matter of a self-respect,
No,
right?
it is. I don't deny. I don't deny. All I'm saying is you don't have to say this. When you say this, you're putting the other person in the offensive mode. I remember there are instances where I've written a complete 2-pager love letter or a message to someone, and the response was, And that was just on a lighter note. But the point is, you don't have to say things which are assumed. From your behavior, then the way you deal with things, it could come naturally that if someone helps you or takes the first step, you will take 10. That's your nature. But you don't have to put it right across on the face that if you take 1, I'll take 10.
It's not a matter of helping each other. It's a matter of just talking.
I know.
Yeah.
I completely understand. I completely understand when you say, and let's come back to the discussion on what happens during the conversation. I hope this segment is something which will help you in finding an answer. Like I mentioned, it is not problem solving. Difficult conversation is about having the conversation in the first place. It need not be that that person will take a step. But the point is, you have made the effort from your end to have the conversation. Akanksha, the point you were mentioning is about this. The point that you are having the conversation and you can take the burden off your shoulder that you have not done anything. It is about you doing what is required to be done, and let's see if things work out. That's wonderful. And for them to work out, I know that is coming up, Akanksha, for them to work out is what we are going to see, possibly what all can we do so that it works out. Okay, Akanksha, go ahead.
My question had a second part, not just the initiating part. What if the other person is not ready to have the conversation? What if they want to postpone it more and more? And the other person, while you are in the mess yourself, the other person is not willing to cooperate to have a conversation. How do you try or persuade the other person to have this conversation at the earliest?
You can't persuade someone to have the conversation. You can do from your end, and if it doesn't move ahead, you'll have to just wait. It's something like forgiveness. If, as an instance, many times we have had these fights or challenges, until the other person is ready to forgive, you cannot persuade them to forgive. Just as an example. Now, I'm just giving an example of forgiveness as per se. In the other instance also, with regard to solving problems, it takes 2 hands to clap. You can try. Like, I'll come back to this point towards the end of this point. Like I mentioned, you are ahead. Problem is that you'll have to skip few sessions. We will come to this thing where you will have also to accept that you are important. Like Rabia was mentioning, your self-respect, your self-esteem is also important. You are not going in to be the scapegoat for someone else's problem. You're going in to have a conversation. And it is okay to end the conversation by agreeing to disagree. That is also one of the outcomes. But the conversation is not happening. I understand your problem. You'll have to wait.
What if the efforts are just one-sided is the question.
You'll have to wait. You have to put your efforts and leave it there. Sometimes the other conversation, the other side of the conversation is not willing to have it at all. So it's okay. You have made your attempts, and that is where you have gone through your difficult conversation, even without the conversation happening. Beyond that, you cannot force, or you cannot be in charge of someone else's, or you cannot take responsibility of someone else. So let me get into this point, and towards the end, let's see if you find a kind of a navigation to get through this. Hopefully it does. So that was about before the conversation, and we are already at 9:55, even before we have started the conversation. So let's get going with what happens during the conversation. First and foremost is, whenever we are talking about a difficult conversation, we are all heated up in our mind about what all we want to say. And like in any other communication, the focus has to be not on just what you have to say. It has to be on what the other person is saying, because a lot of your answers, a lot of your responses and instances where the resolution will come through will come by listening to what the other person is saying. Because many times in a difficult conversation, the reason it is a difficult conversation is because there's a lot of things at stake, and there's a lot of khichdi which is happening. And so it is natural for you to keep reworking the calculations in your mind and reworking the wordings of what you want to say, how you want to say, will this person accept, will this get resolved, all these things are constantly, even while the conversation is happening, they're running in your mind. And that is the problem. The solution is exactly out of that place, in the other person's mind. You have to put this aside and listen to what the other person is saying. Because when you're talking of a difficult conversation, it's a lot to do with the relationship and what the other person is going through. You know your story. You very well know your story. But during the conversation, listen to what the other person is saying. And there you'll find a cue. May not be outrightly telling this is what I am facing. Rabia may not be outrightly telling this is what I'm going through, but you'll have to see the cue through which you can get an indication of what could possibly be the reason for this challenge in the first place. But for that, you have to listen to what the other person is saying. Focus on what
the other person won't say a word only. Then
I know. Like I mentioned, there will be times where you'll have to pause. You will have to wait and watch and wait for the right time when the other person will respond. You cannot force your conversation or your trouble on the other person, except for instances where the other person is harming you or harming the environment. In that instance, you will have to sit down. Maybe if the person is not talking to you, you'll need to have a mediator. You will need to have a third person. You will need to have a common person who can sit through with your conversation so that it helps. So it can just open up what is going on beyond that. Okay, what does that mean? Is possibly if a third person, if you are the one who has aggrieved the other person, why would I talk to you? As an example, I'm not saying you are the problem, but that is what you think. You think you are not the problem. If the other person feels, he or she might not open up at all. He doesn't want to. I don't bother what you think. Could be an instance. So focus while you're speaking to understand the intention and the story behind the other person's story. When you're having that conversation, listen to what is the narrative that the other person has. What is the intention for the game that you played? What could be the reason that they're behaving in a certain way? Listen to what they're saying. And like you go to a doctor As soon as you go and sit there, they don't open the notepad and write down that, okay, take this prescription and take this medicine, go. They listen to you first. And based on that diagnosis, they offer you the answer. This is what you have to do in your conversation while you're having it. Listen to what the other person is there. You've had enough of your story because you're filled with that only right now. Listen and then acknowledge. You could have your rebuttal, you could have your counter viewpoint, you could have your answer to what you are feeling. But the point is, if you want to close this conversation on a clean note or have a safe landing, listen and acknowledge first. Acknowledge is the word, because once you do not acknowledge what the other person is feeling, you're in for a war. You're not there for the conversation. The war is on, because you have your side of the story, the other person has their side of the story, and it is a never-ending story. This will be a deadlock if you do not listen and acknowledge. How much ever you feel that could be wrong, acknowledge. I understand you are going through this. I understand you were hurt. I understand this is not how it operates with you. Then go ahead with saying, but this is what I feel. This is what I think. I feel my team did a lot of hard work. They have spent sleepless nights because we overcommitted for doing it in 6 months. And we delivered. I think that deserves a little bit of appreciation from you, because you're the one who's facing the client, or you know what or who had and how it has been delivered. The tone that you present to that person makes them feel what you are experiencing, because they do not know. They could possibly be not knowing what you are thinking at all. Ellen, Subbu, the story that you shared, or the story about the finance part of it, like Shanti was mentioning, they could not be knowing, or they could have a story. Listen to what they're saying, then you can understand you have a problem. I understand, but when you mentioned that you'll be repaying in 1 month, I had my plans. I put aside my EMI payment and shared with you because I trusted that you will be giving back to me. Then the conversation moves forward, because that is where we are actually getting onto a common ground where we are seeing beyond the problem, beyond this heated exchange of energy or emotional energy which is there, and we get on to the conversation following that. Now that I know I'm feeling this, the other person is feeling this, and this is what should be, could be, what can be for the future, rather than looking at it in the past, what can be in the future, you are actually beginning with the conversation. The reason why this session wasn't an inspiration series and a communication mastery is because of this thing. We are not talking about resolving or changing of perspective alone. We are talking of how we are communicating with people, and that is what leads to the resolution of the problem. It's about how we are doing this conversation, what you're saying, what stance that you're carrying, what narrative that you're coming on, and how are you listening to what the other person has to say. That is where this entire narrative builds and will work to have this conversation for you. So focus on how the emotions are being charged up, because when there's a difficult conversation, there is a very high chance there will be verbal attacks. There will be past instances which will be brought to this instance, which has no relevance at all. Acknowledge and revert, saying that I believe this is something of the past and we have closed that conversation. This is something which has happened in the past and that has no relevance to this conversation. I am a changed person. I said sorry to you for that last time. I think we need to talk on this point. How are we resolving this issue? You have to constantly keep, that's the reason when we began, what is your purpose? Bring back every emotional charged up conversation back to this point, and how we are talking at this point in time. You did this, you did that. You did not ask me this. The last time, remember what you did? Are all not relevant to this conversation. And so your calmness and your emotional charge, you will also have these instances where you will be elevated that, how can you say this to me? I've contributed so much, and yet you're saying you do not acknowledge what we have done. Is an emotional charge response that the other person could be waiting to use. So when it comes to during the conversation, the very important thing is your calmness in the way you are maintaining and reverting back to the purpose of why you are having this conversation in the first place. Focus on that. And I think that being the anchor you will need, because as humans, we will always have these tantrums which will be thrown. We will be having these plots that the other person will be using to come back to us. So focus on the purpose. And most importantly, there are two very important things which happen during the conversation. One is taking a break. Remember how people say count 1 to 10 while you're angry? While the conversation, it's very important. I think I heard this thing beautifully recently. It was said that while someone was having a heated argument, one person suddenly said, I think we should stop here, because we might end up saying something which we don't intend to, and it could be irreparable damage. So let's take this conversation after a break. It could be 15-minute break, 1 day break, 2 days break, or whatever. Because right when you have that break, both of you all have that opportunity to cool down and make sense of what is happening, and not giving to that emotional pulse or the energy which is there at that point in time to continue. So when it comes to your family or conversation that you're having, or with your boss, with your with the friend whom you've given your money, the point is sometimes it's important to take a break, and more importantly, accept when there are moments of silence. In those moments of silence, when we are actually having that conversation, both of us, we and the other person, is reflecting on possibly that I could be wrong, I could have gone wrong, or thinking of how do I revert to this without making further damage to it. Because in that moment of silence is where the entire things which have happened as a part of conversation are digested. The digestion happens, because in the flow we might not have that opportunity to think. How many times have you had a fight with someone, and after 20 minutes you think, where did this begin? What were we discussing about, and why did we have this conversation? Husband, wives, I think everyone can relate. We are having a discussion about the kid, and we are not sure where we went on to discuss and remember that you did this to me in the first year of marriage, you did this to me, and that was 20 years back. So use pause, whether it's a break, a longer one or a shorter one, in the silence which is there, to calm the nerves which are there during the conversation. That said, that brings me to the final part of the doing part, and that is what I think Rabia or Akanksha were discussing about, the outcomes of a difficult conversation. It could be silence, it could be no response, but the important thing is how you persuade the other person that you made your attempts, you have made your communication clear, you have tried and you have communicated your side of the story, so that the other person doesn't assume what your side of the story was. And unless we speak, unless we, with whomsoever you're having a difficult conversation, unless we speak, I think this is going to be a deadlock and a lose-lose for both of us. So remember this, when it comes to an outcome of a difficult conversation, it need not be an happy ending. First and foremost step is to have the conversation, and a possible outcome could be to agree to disagree. With Subbu or Ellen, the stories that you were mentioning of what has happened in the past is something which I cannot do much. But making sure you are making your attempts, or you're making your viewpoint clear to the other person, that I think it is something that we need to work on, giving credit to our team who's working so hard. Otherwise, eventually they will lose the drive to work so hard for you. And it's eventually all of us who's benefiting or at loss if this continues this way. Just a clear message of what is expected in the future may not be something which has been done in the past, can be reverted, or it could be an ego hurt for someone to revert on that point. now going and sending across a mail that the credit goes to this person or this team who has worked so hard. May not be possible, but you're making it clear to the other person that this is something that I would like not to have happen in the future when we work, and for a better cohesion or better teamwork in the team, this is what I would like to have happen in the future events at least. Ellen? So we could have, so with regard to the thought process and the communication, it has to be communicated. Otherwise, this burden which is there on you, you're feeling this, you're letting it be. I heard this line from you, let it be. Because if you let it be and keep this all within yourself, it will remain. It will be assumed by the other person that you are a good worker and you want to remain so. You are Rahul Dravid and you are not Kohli. He's happy to work, while you are thinking in your mind that why am I not getting the credit? So have the conversation and put it across that I would like this thing to happen in the future. Let's see what happens in the future after you have said this thing. That's another conversation that you could possibly have. But as a first step, let it be is not an alternative, because you have not made your viewpoint clear and you have not communicated your side of the story. Then you do not have the right to expect that the other person will behave the way you want it to, because you have not told him, you have not communicated him. Just because you feel that, okay, maybe this person will be offended if I tell this. Then the question is about how do you say it to him? The question is not about if I should say it. The question is, how do I say it to him that he gets the message? And that is where the difficult part of it is. That's a difficult part on how do you go about saying what you want to say and making sure that it lands in a safe landing. So accept that there could be an instance where you agree to disagree, and that is where the conversation ends. You feel Modi is good, I feel someone else is good. You feel Modi ke bhakto, theek hai. It's okay. If you feel that way I am, I let it be. You don't have to argue, because if you go on to just prove, fight and win a war, it will end up being that. There will be no end to it. So have a conversation, but always have this option where you are agreeing to disagree when it comes to the eventual outcome of the conversation. Another important thing in terms of the outcome, wherein sometimes we get onto that stand where we think my way or highway, where we think that, okay, this is what I want to happen. If you are stubborn on that, there could be a high likelihood that you're burning the bridges. You could get what you want. You could possibly get what you want, but it could leave a sour taste for the other person to come back to the table next time to you. So remember, the weightage that you give to relationships is also critical when it comes to how you are closing the conversation. It need not be always about winning versus losing. It can be a neutral end where the future is taken care of while we let go of the present or the past which has happened. So look at that also as an outcome. And what Rabia mentioned and Akanksha mentioned over here, do not chase likability. A lot of people who do not want to get into conflicts or these conversations is because they don't want to be in the bad books. But the problem is you end up in your own bad books if you don't have the conversation. You cannot please everyone. You cannot have everyone on your side. That is never going to happen. And if you feel that you want everyone on your side, there's a famous saying, if you want to please everyone, sell ice creams. Everyone will be happy. But if you want to have difficult conversations, remember that you may not have, or you may not be able to please anyone and everyone that you want to. There will be sore endings. There will be. The question is, you don't want to end up in a sore basket for yourself. You are also important. Your self-respect is also important. But the point is, have you made an attempt? And where are you leaving that conversation is the question. Because you don't want to leave the conversation ending on your side. You put across your point, and it's okay to not have everyone agree to your viewpoint. That's about the conversation while you're having it. So take care of listening to what the other person is saying. managing your emotions while the conversation is happening, because it's a difficult conversation. There will be heating up of conversations. Use effective pauses. And finally, the choices of outcome that you have as a part of difficult conversations may not be always about winning or losing. There are gray areas, and what you choose and let be is something that you choose, but that is after having the conversation, not without having a conversation. Because like I mentioned at the start, the worst possible outcome of a difficult conversation is to not have it at all. With that, I come to an end, and I leave it open for questions for anyone if you have anything to ask, or you can discuss with the thoughts that you had your experiences, what has worked, what has not worked based on what I've shared. I'm more than happy to listen. Over to you, Uma ma'am.
Yeah, the tips, whatever you gave was very useful. So I will be using the same in the conversation tomorrow, which I'm going to have with somebody.
The point that you mentioned about feedback, the critical feedback part of it, I've always had this instance where I don't want to be in the good books of people who can't grow. Because for you to grow, you will have to have the critical elements of it, those elements. Just that maybe anything you say is an area of improvement can come across as harsh to anyone. But if that person sits down to think of what your intention was and what your input meant, even if it comes as a nonsense, it is something which I feel the person can think about if he cares about himself. So I've known people in Toastmasters who have literally bluntly on my face said, this is pathetic. And I'm proud of knowing them. Not then at that point in time when they said that, but maybe after 2 days, I realized what they were saying. And for that, I have a bond in that relationship with that person. But that's me. Someone may not be that strong enough or mature enough to understand and would want, okay, I want everyone to just clap for me. Doesn't help. I won't grow. So in that sense, always remember that person has told me, if you want a good feedback, don't come to me. But if you want to do a better speech, come to me. And then don't be bothered of how I'm saying. Look at what I am saying. So when you said about the feedback and the critical feedback, don't focus on the likability part of it, because you're not helping someone by just being a little softer on what you want to say. Because if you say it softly, that person might not take it at all. I hope you get that. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else would like to share anything? Yes, Pragya.
So this is something which even I'm trying to apply in my life, and it's been more than 15 years that I'm trying it. But this has come from two people who I have absolutely seen managing conversations amazingly well. And the first advice which I ever got about how to manage these conversations was that, you know, whenever you're into a conversation, first think whether this conversation or this person is really that important to me that I can either let the person go or let the conversation go. You know, so this is actually my mama, my maternal uncle, whom I have seen the best person to ever manage any conversation in professional life, personal life. He was known for it. So this was one thing which he had told me. Second thing which he had always told me is that if you enter a conversation with a mindset, what I am saying is right, you will never, you're actually not having a conversation with somebody else. You're just having a conversation with your own self, and the other person is just blurting out whatever is happening, and nothing is actually going in your head. So this was a suggestion which he gave me when I joined my job for the first time, that if you really want to have conversations in your professional life, do not go with the idea that I am the right person or I know it right. Just listen with a blank paper or a blank page in you. And the third suggestion which I absolutely got in my life, which I'm not able to incorporate yet, but yes, my grandmother gave me this suggestion when I entered into a relationship. You know, when I got married, and she knew that there'll be hundreds of people around me who I will have to handle or I'll have to deal with in conversations, and it might get really, really rough. Especially being a love marriage, it might absolutely get rough. So one thing which she clearly told me that always keep a balance between yourself and that other person. If you feel that this conversation is hurting you, your mind more, stop it there, because it is not worth. At least at that point of time, it will not be worth, because it is only going to hurt you more and nothing is going to happen and nothing is going to be a positive outcome out of it. If you really think that conversation is extremely important to you, do it after a point of time where you have crossed that high of why is this thing happening to me? Why are these people doing this to me? And what is happening with my life? Because when you're speaking, then it will be these three highs which you will be getting. Why is it happening to me? Why is it happening to my life? And who are these people to decide for me? So do it after that. And last thing which I learned from her in the conversational part, Rahul would be thinking she doesn't apply any of these. I don't know why she has learned it, but it's a learning. You don't always, you're not always able to apply it. But last thing which I learned from my grandmother with the same thing of, because I have seen a lot of difficult conversations happening between her and my grandfather about identity, about being herself, about managing the house, and so many other things, and the regular things which you all go through. And him having difficult conversations about money, how do you manage the financials and all those kind of things. And one thing which was common in their conversation was that be open to understanding the side of the story, the stress, the functionality which the other person is managing the things with. You as a wife might say, you don't fulfill my requirements, you don't get me this, you don't get me that, my manager doesn't give me this. But understand that on the other side, the husband might be trying the best to do it. So when you sit on a table of conversation, never have it on food. First thing, never have any conversation on food. That was one rule I would say. And secondly, never sleep with a conversation open. These are the two things which she told me. How much ever difficult the conversation is, even if you're fighting on the top of your voice and the whole society gets up, doesn't matter, but don't sleep with the conversation open and sleep with it, because that is going to ruin the relationship with anybody that you have. So these are the things which I am still trying. One of them I have applied, that I think, as far as I remember, me and Rahul never sleep with the conversation open, even if it is a fight happening at 12 in the night, but we still finish it and then go off to sleep. And it has really helped a lot, because next day morning, that difficult conversation goes, it calms down, and we start with a different outlook altogether next day morning. It might help.
Thank you. See, she came in after half of the session was over and she summarized all the things which I said. Anyone else would like to share any of the thoughts or things that you would like to share or discuss, or your feedback for the session? Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah, actually 3 to 4 things I have observed actually. That money matter ma'am said, Shanti ma'am told actually, same thing I faced actually a lot of things. What I used to do actually, when once we are given right amount, yeah, voice is
a little closer.
Yeah. Actually, what for example, during my marriage time, I given actually help like anything I given my friend. They supposed to given back on time. Actually, after asking how I am feeling, I am asking help to them. Actually, I am asking help. Actually, please give back money, or else I am asking some help. Favor I'm asking like that. Actually, nowadays happening. So we need to aware and give. Whoever I given, that guy is died actually. So what to do? So I actually what I done during my simply what I put mail to her family like that actually office like that. Now I asked during that time like that. That is first one again. Pragya ma'am actually told what I used to do actually last week happened. Myself and my wife actually small. She gets some feedback from her in-laws or something like that. So what happened? Just nothing I spoke actually. That time I simply quit. Okay. Okay. I said, okay, that's it. That time I've start speaking more than 1 hour, I'll talk. Even she know that one. So that time I said, okay, nowadays I'm practicing that one. Okay. After 1 or 2 days, then she will tell whatever I spoke with you, the day they're wrong actually. something, if I can talk means I can talk, or else I need to give some time to them. They need to think what they are talking. Or else simply I also talk in office. One person taught me actually, you don't speak immediately. Inside you need to count 1, 2, 3 like that 10. I used to talk immediately. I will wait actually. How the fish like that actually I will wait that one. So nowadays I'm practicing that also. I will not actually, I will talk much. Nowadays I'm just listening actually. Okay, so we have to do in office matter what I told, right? What I am doing actually past 5 years I'm doing a lot of things, but actually even my boss will know I am taking care of everything. That is clear. But this new person, what they're trying to do, actually, some things they are thinking we both are not communicated. They are cleverly thinking like that. Just I'll say, okay, let it be. I'm working for my satisfaction. I'm not working for my boss or working for like that. Whatever satisfaction someone is seeing actually around you, I need to work. He went, no, actually, I'm not listening songs like that. I'm not. Whatever I want, I can do my work. If I'm getting salary, I will more than that, I will do and come. That is actually, I understood that one. But nowadays, actually, that people, they are thinking, actually, we don't know anything. They know everything. That's happening. So that's the reason, actually, I'm thinking, okay, let it be there. What, again, one more thing. Sometimes we are communicating also. For example, money, right? 3 to 4 matter, money matter, actually, I have. During my marriage time, I given my friend only 50,000 like that for photographer. He's supposed to give back during COVID. Actually, no marriages that happened, no phone only were taken. But last week also I messaged him, just he need to respond, right? Actually, this is so and so. I don't want money also now. Just is that response is required, right? What they're actually they're thinking, we are not responding means that is over. Like that, actually, we need to again we are doing. I'm getting some embarrassing situation. So like that, what to do? Okay, if nowadays I'm doing charity like that. If I don't want money, I will giving. Or else money matter don't involve. I don't want 2,000 or something, right? Someone is asking help 2,000, 5,000. I don't want, I'm giving, or else I will not give. I'm very clear on that. So
interesting, Ellen.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, let me know the figure so that I can ask you, so that you won't ask again. Interesting. Subbu, anyone? Dinesha, go ahead.
So just Ellen, I just wanted to know, it's like you let me know now when you don't want.
Ellen, now you have 13 other people other than yourself to be prepared for whatever is the threshold. We'll ask you that much only, so that you don't ask us again.
I will give needy people only. Okay. I will verify that is needy. Okay. If we are need.
Last week you saw me now. How was I looked a little needy, right?
Yeah, that's the reason I asked you. How are you? You were feeling happy, right?
Thank you. Yeah. Pragya, quick. We are already at 10:27.
Yeah, just one small point which I have experienced why we get into these difficult conversations is because most of the times we try to fix people into our own boxes. You know, this is how this person should be, and most of my difficult conversations, at least, has been because I have created an image of any particular person, and if that person doesn't fit or do or verify the particular image and do the things according to how I expect, or I I have designed that person to be, I get into very difficult conversations with that person. So one thing probably which most of us go, I'm not sure about others, but at least I go through in these difficult conversations is that whenever you're conversing with anybody, you step out of your box and he or she steps out of his box, come on a central land and then discuss anything which is happening.
Completely agree to that. Like we mentioned about listening, I think that is what we are saying. Don't stick on your platform or your base, because that's when you are thinking all about yourself rather than about the other person, or you're thinking about the other person from your angle rather than anything neutral. Dinesha, go ahead.
Sir, one thing I observed, your listening capacity when Pragya Madam started, 101%. Rahul sir, your listening and overall attention, your facial expression, completely 101%.
I can't confess here, right? You know, she's my wife.
That is 12 years of training.
You can call it that. Anyone else would like to share? Subbu, any thoughts? Anyone else? We'll make it quick. In the next 2 to 3 minutes, we'll close. Any feedback or any thoughts on your experiences and what has worked as a result, or what has backfired? Jay, go ahead.
Yes, Rahul. One thing, like, it was an insightful session. One thing I don't know, I would have missed so much if I wouldn't have attended this. One thing I've been facing since last couple of weeks was I started going to college regularly after a very long pause. I don't know. Now people have maintained that rapport and all with among friends. Now I don't have any rapport with them. So it was very difficult to have conversations with people, like, to uh, people have some common points there. I don't have any. So it was very difficult. So I every time I used to go prepared, like what conversation I'll have with Kushal or what conversation I'll have with Preeti. I used to go prepared. Then after, like, uh talking to them, I never used to get that vibe ki why are and they replying to me the way I need them to reply. So after listening to all of the tips that you have given, I've taken some things out. Those are, like, never chase likability. I reflected that I was chasing likability there, though, like, I didn't have common points with them. And I I always had a conversation thinking I know it all, and I always was suggestive to them rather being open on that conversation. Like, why I didn't came to college, I was doing stuff and all. And about Pragya, the thing that Pragya said, uh, never, I never used to acknowledge them before. They used to have some tell me something, but I never acknowledged, and they just used to revert it uh, there. So it was a very insightful session. I am planning to apply all this and hope that I maintain a good rapport with all of them. Thank you, Rahul.
Wonderful, Jay. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that elaborate. Dinesha, I hope you saw that I was listening to him also, and he's not my wife. So I hope you don't put me into that box every time. Go ahead, Dinesha.
Sir, I work in an organization. We have partner with so many different organizations. There are around 20 plus supervisors. There is a regional manager. They handle around 20 plus under them. There are employees. Regularly, what happens on frequent basis, like weekly or fortnightly, we regularly call them. The main purpose will be business one, because what is their reason, what is the business is coming, how we can improve this strategy, planning, expectation only. What happens whenever we call, they will also know like why Dinesh is calling. That is obviously they will be in their mind. But what happened, I'll make in a different way the conversation. Like I keep on like asking in initial conversation, sir, how are you? Had you finished your breakfast? Like that, I start instead of directly pitching into business aspect. One person, what happened last week when I started like, sir, how are you and all, he
Come
started
to the
like,
point.
yeah, he's saying like, sir, too much of tension and all. But I told like, sir, you are like out of 20 supervisor, you are like very handsome guy. If you would have taken this kind of tension, this kind of handsome and very shiny face, you would have not maintained that kind of personality. Then I started this kind of conversation. He similarly, sir, all I know, sir, but can we have a direct point?
That's what I told.
I know
Come to the
that,
point.
yeah, I know that my cluster business is not happening, but I'll do, sir. Like that, he ended the conversation.
See, that's what. No, I'm not sure where the difficult conversation in this is, but I think the next conversation is something which is going to be difficult. Whether you go by your own strategy that you have been having, or you directly get to the point, is something which I think you'll have to take a call and see how you are having that next conversation.
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you, Dinesha. Anyone else would like to share anything before we close the session for today? Rabia, Shubhadra, ma'am.
One thing I would like to say from this session, I have learned and also understood clearly the meaning of the saying that is silence is golden.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
I mean to say about the conversation, if it get heated up, if the other person fails to understand our way of dealing the things with, so if we do not have any other way to explain them, then as you said, there has to be a pause. So that proverb, silence is golden, is very much applicable, I can say. That is the lesson I heard, not with this session, I mean to say.
Understood. Now I'm okay. After you have attempted something, you say silence is golden is okay. But before attempting, if you say silence is golden, I'm a little skeptical about the learning that you have had. Thank you, Rabia. Jay, go ahead.
One
more thing.
quick question,
1 minute, Rabia.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jay.
One quick question, like how do we take compliments? Like how do we reply to compliments when someone say your shirt is too good, you're looking good? How?
Soak in. See, it could be
yeah.
ulterior with an ulterior motive, or whether it's a genuine one. Soak in all that you're getting. And simple thing is, always remember, humility and humbleness will always have its own charm. So take in whatever is coming in. So I have a record of every compliment that I've got. Not with an idea to become arrogant, but with an idea that there will be bad days when I'll need something to fall back to. And I did something good. The self-esteem and the confidence that you get from soaking in these things is something which adds to your confidence. So make sure they do not override your hard work and the work that you're going to do, because that will become arrogance and overconfidence. But if you take in well and use that as a fuel to work further and work deeper, I think that should be good enough. You can soak in all that you're getting. Because frankly speaking, it's been 105 sessions journey for me, and different compliments at different times from different people, from the same people at different times. And yet here we are sitting, working hard to make sure we continue to deserve those compliments. I think that is where it all boils down to. Otherwise, I could become arrogant that, see, I've completed so many sessions, I've got so many compliments, I've accomplished so much, I'm the star and all that thing. And the next time, people will stop turning around. People will stop turning and joining into these sessions if that is the case. That is what I feel. Jay?
Yeah, got it. Like, understood.
So use humbleness and use these compliments as a fuel to work further and serve deeper and work deeper. That's what I would say. Rather than bloating into it, use that so that it fuels you further ahead and keeps your motivation high, that people look up to you and people like the way you do things.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay, for that question. Any other, Sri Lakshmi, Akanksha, Shanti, any feedback or any thoughts before we close the session now in the next 2 minutes? Shanti, are you there? Akanksha, go ahead.
Yes, so I just want to tell you that this session idea was something much needed, and it always happens so that the sessions you choose somehow happen to be at the accurate time, the time when we need it the most. So, and this session is something wonderful because difficult conversations are mandatory to hold a bond together or anything. So, and the insights you have shared here, the ideas on how to start, how to continue with it, and how to end when it's the appropriate time. Like, not to drag it too much or not to just leave it in between, but there is a right time for everything. So, you emphasizing on that point was something very much needed and insightful, I would say. And everyone here sharing their personal stories of the difficult conversations they've had or they are supposed to have, or the current situation they're in, also helped me in understanding the various kind of situations that could be. One could be about in your colleague space, in your family, or anything. So, and even in your friend space, just like Jason now said. So, it was a wide range of perspectives that were offered and a wide range of learnings as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Akanksha. Like I mentioned, not just in the thought process, in the problems also, you are ahead of me. So I just make sure that I'm on time to the problem that you're experiencing and bring about a session for that. With that, I think we come to an end. And anyone else would like to share anything before we close? 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Mom, for that. And first of all, before I close, I would like to thank all the people who have shared their stories. I think because that is where the depth of the session comes in. Had it been an abstract, generic here, there, I read this, I read that, I faced this, it would not have had so much of a depth as we have had right now. So thank you, Ellen, Uma ma'am, whosoever shared their problems. I think they did add value, and thanks for sharing it on this platform. I believe you bringing it makes us feel loved, that you feel open, that you can speak your challenges and discuss things on this platform. With that, we come to an end for this session, and let me close the usual way. Saturday nights have never been this beautiful for the last 105 Saturday nights. It's been an honor to be sharing our perspectives, listening to your perspectives, and gaining new perspectives. Thank you for the love that you keep coming back every Saturday night and adding life to our life and to every member of the Speak Up Club family. See you next Saturday, 9 p.m. again. Good night, everyone.